Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Here we are discussing about the engineering subjects. In this lecture of metal forming analysis, we will study the stresses and their types. In metal forming, solids are more concerned with the internal forces and associated changes in the geometry of the components involved. Materials properties like strength determines whether the components fail by breaking in service or not, and the stiffness determines whether the amount of deformation they suffer is acceptable. Therefore, the objective of metal forming analysis will be the determination of the stresses and strains produced in the body. So, therefore, the objective of metal forming analysis will be the determination of the stresses and strains produced in the body. So, before defining stress, let us understand the concept of stress. As we know that the main problem of engineering mechanics of a material is the investigation of the internal resistance forces of the body. That is, the nature of forces set up within a body to balance the effect of externally applied forces. These externally applied forces are termed as loads. If we have a rigid bodies or deformable bodies which are subjected to the external applied forces, we need to assume that under these applied forces the system is in static equilibrium. So these externally applied forces on the body are termed as loads. These applied forces may be due to some of the reasons given below. First is due to the service conditions. If I have a machine element, external forces are applied on the element under different service conditions. Second point is due to the environment in which the component work. Suppose when the machine elements are exposed to the open environment, external forces are applied on it. If we are using lubricant in the machine, there is a less force acting on the body due to the environment. Third is through the contact members with others. As we know that in all machinery, all machine elements are linked to each other to transmit force, torque, speed through the connectivity. So these connections cause an external applied forces on the body. Fourth one is fluid pressures, which are associated with the buoyancy forces or hydrodynamic forces. These forces provides impact and steady state forces. That is why we are categorized these forces into external applied forces. Fifth one is due to the gravity or inertia forces. These are always present on the body as a friction in the solid mechanics and viscosity in the fluid mechanics. So these kind of externally applied forces are present in the body. Now these forces on the object can only be analyzed if forces are existing within the body and the body is in the static equilibrium. Static equilibrium means whether the force is dynamic or impact. In both conditions, body must be in static equilibrium. Under these conditions, first we have the surface traction, which says that force distribution is applied on the surface of the body. This means easy to find the line of action of the forces and also its nature. Second is body forces and movement. As we apply external forces, body always resists the applied forces internally, which are set up within the particles of material due to cohesion. So there are two categories. First is gravity, which means any body kept in open environment, gravity is applied on the body. Hence there is some resisting force inside the body resisting the gravity force. Second category is the magnetic attraction. These are due to electromagnetic forces. As we understand the concept of stress, let us define the term stress. Stress is defined as the internal resistance offered by the body to the applied external load per unit cross-sectional area. It is denoted by Greek symbol sigma, that is given by sigma equals to F by A. F is the resisting force, A is the effective cross-sectional area. Now understand the stress with a diagram. Let us consider a rectangular bar of some cross-sectional area and subject it to the uniaxial force. To understand the acting forces, we cut the rectangular bar into two halves at the section XX. Each section of the rectangular bar is in static equilibrium under the action of load P and the internal resistance forces acting at the section XX. Here in the diagram we clearly see that an internal forces is acting at cross sectional XX, which gives us the stress in the body. As we saw in the diagram, how resisting forces acting in the body internally when we apply an external force on the body. So let us talk about the key points related to the stress. First point is stress concentration occurs in the body due to non-uniform distribution of total force. When we apply forces on the body, the force is distributed over the surface. If the body have no defects, force distribution is uniform, otherwise the force distribution is non-uniform. This non-uniform distribution is due to the cracks, holes, sharp corners, sudden increase or decrease in the cross section. So let us define stress concentration first. Stress concentration is the accumulation of stress in body due to the sudden or abrupt changes in its geometry. Change in geometry occurs due to cracks, sharp corners, holes, etc. There is an increase in the localized stress near these defects. Body fails where there is a high stress concentration. Now in next point, if the components where the forces is not uniformly distributed over its cross-sectional area, we must consider a small area delta A which carries a small load delta F of the total force, which is given by sigma equals to delta F upon delta A. Stress at a point is defined mathematically as sigma equals to limit delta A tends to 0 delta F by delta A. Next, we will require a unit for stress. The SI unit of stress is Newton per square meter or Pascal, and the imperial unit is pound square per inch. Now we have some relations like 1 megapascal is equals to 10 to the power 5 Pascal, 1 gigapascal is equals to 10 to the power 9 Pascal, and third one is 1 kilopascal is equals to 10 to the power 3 Pascal. Sometimes Newton per mm square units are also used because this is an equivalent to 1 megapascal, while US customary unit is pound per square inch, that is PSI. Now we will discuss about each type of stress in detail. So let us define first the direct stress. We understand the concept of stress and its definition from the previous slides. Now we will discuss about the types of stresses. On the basis of different types of load applied on the body, different stresses are induced in the body, which are direct, indirect, combined, and thermal stresses. Direct is further divided into two categories. First is shear stress, second is normal stress, that is tensile or compressive stress. Indirect stress is also divided into two types, which is torsional and bending stress. Combined stress is the combination of direct and indirect stresses. Direct stress is the stress developed due to the external force applied, which is parallel or normal to the axis of the body. It causes change in length or volume or shape. Example of the direct or simple stresses are shear stress, tensile stress, compressive stress. Tensile and compressive stress in the body occurs when the force is applied along the centroidal axis of the body, whereas shear stress occurs when the force acts perpendicular to the centroidal axis. Now we will talk about the assumptions taken in direct or simple stress. As we all know that no body is ideal, so we require to take an assumptions to do the analysis on the body. First assumption is objects like bar, rod, tube, etc. is uniform and prismatic. Second assumption is material is homogeneous. Third assumption is load applied axially along centroidal axis of cross section. Now we will understand the normal stress. So it is defined as the induced stress due to the external force acting perpendicular to the effective cross-sectional area of a body. It is denoted by sigma, and the normal stress at a point on a cross-sectional area is defined as sigma z equals to limit delta A tends to 0 delta F by A. As we see in the diagram that a normal force is acting on the body which is outward from the surface. Each small area of the cross section is subjected to the same force, and sum of these forces must be equal to the resultant force, that is F. If we assume delta A to dA, delta F to dF, then we can simply integrate both sides of the equation and we will arrive at our relationship for normal stress, that is P equals to sigma A, which gives sigma equals to P by A. The relationship for the normal stress is more accurately an average normal stress, since we have taken an average of the internal forces over the entire cross section. Now, first type of normal stress is tensile stress. It is defined as the normal stress induced in a body when it is subjected to two equal and opposite pull forces, as a result of which there is a tendency of increase in length and decrease in the lateral dimensions. Let us imagine a rectangular body. A uniaxial load is applied on it, which is stretching or pulling the body from both ends. There is an increase in length, suppose delta L, and simultaneously we saw that width of the body decreases by delta T when we apply this stretching force on the body. This externally applied forces causes stress in the body. Next, we will see some important points related to the tensile stress. First is the proportionality between tensile force and the elongation holds only up to the certain limiting value of the tensile stress, which is called proportionality limit. It varies from material to material. For structural steel, the proportionality limit is high, and for the cast iron, it is very low. Second point is a material with high proportionality limit can sustain high tensile stress. It means that the materials have high tensile strength, which can sustain these type of high tensile stress. So let us know about the tensile strength. Tensile strength is defined as the amount of tensile stress a material that can withstand without breaking. Like steels, it have a high tensile strength in comparison to the cast iron. Steels used in structures to get high durability. In fourth point, the tensile stress accelerates the corrosion process of the corroded steel. Hence, reduces the mechanical properties as well as overall strength. Okay. In this stress, the particles of the material get stressed, which result in breakdown of the protective passive film, which led to the corrosion of the material. There are some examples like cable of crane and an elevator cable. Both cable experiences tensile forces which causes a tensile stress in cable. Now discussing about the second type of normal stress, that is compressive stress. It is defined as the tendency to decrease the body length when body is subjected to two equal and opposite push forces, which is acting normal to the effective area, which induces a stress in the body. Let us understand with a diagram. Assume a cylindrical bar. We see a uniaxial stress is acting normal to the bar, which is trying to squeeze it. In this case, particles of the pillar material tends to reduce its shape as each particle is experiencing a crushing load on them. This stress causes a reduction in length of the material and increases the width of the material. Now talking about the important points related to the compressive stress. First point says under compression load, ductile material often get compressed without sustaining damage, whereas brittle material get fractured. Now talking about some important points related to the compressive stress. First point says that under compression load, ductile materials withstand this stress without damaging, whereas brittle material get fractured when compressed at high extent. It is so because the ductile material has more compressive strength than the brittle material, and brittle material fractures due to the sudden release of energy that was stored in the material. Second point is the coated substrate are known to corrode less rapidly in compressive stress. Although this is also depends on what substance is used to coat the component. In case of compressive stress, the particles of the material come closer, due to which the transverse cracks are reduced and hence the corrosion process is reduced in the material. Third point is bearing stress or crushing stress is taken into account to design machine elements like rivet joints, quarter joints, knuckle joints, etc. It is in fact a compressive stress. Taking case of rivet joint, in this failure occurs when compressive stress between the shank of rivet and the plate exceed the yield stress. So let us define the bearing stress. It is defined as the stress developed when two elastic bodies are forced together, that is fastened joints. Now we see in the figure of rivet joint, a riveted member always applied to a tensile force, where bearing stress is acting between plate and rivet and the shear stress is at the contact surface of the riveted member. After defining the normal stress, we should also know about the sign convention used in it. For the tensile stress, it is taken as positive, and for compressive stress, it is taken as the negative. This sign helps to signify whether the stress is tensile or compressive during calculation. So we have discussed all normal stresses. Now moving to the second type of direct stress, that is shear stress. So shear stress is defined as the resisting tangential force per unit cross sectional area of the surface upon which it acts. It is denoted by Greek symbol tau, which is given by tau is equal to P by A, where P is the total force and A is the effective area. As we know that the particular stress generally holds good only at the point. Therefore, we can define stress at a point. It is given as tau is equals to limit 8 delta A tends to 0 delta F by delta A. In shear stress, we have different assumptions. First is prismatic beam of a linear elastic material with small beam deflections. Second assumptions we have to take is shear stresses acting on the cross section are parallel to the shear force. Third assumption is shear stresses are uniformly distributed across the width of the beam but can vary over the height. Now let us understand shear stress with a diagram. Shear stress that act parallel to the surface, it can cause object to slide over another. It also tends to deform originally rectangular objects into the parallelograms. The most general definition is that shear acts to change the angle in an object. Prismatic bar means the bar has a uniform cross-sectional area. It has a structural member having a straight longitudinal axis and a constant cross-section throughout its length. Now let us talk about the important points related to the shear stress. First point is deformation of a material in shear stress is caused due to the slippage of atoms along a crystallography plane or planes parallel to the induced stress. Second point is in the structural and mechanical engineering, the shear strength of a component is an important factor for the designing of the components which are subjected to the shear stress. Shear strength is the strength of a material to withstand the type of yield or structural failure where the material of component fails in shear. Next point is shear stress distribution is parabolic in nature. Fourth point is in case of rectangular, square and circular cross section, shear stress is maximum at the neutral axis of the component. Next, talking about the sign convention for the shear stresses, first is if the element tends to turn in clockwise direction, then it is taken as positive. If the element tends to turn in anti-clockwise direction or counterclockwise direction, then it is taken as negative. Now, talking about the examples of the shear stress, first example of the shear stress is paper is cut with the scissor. It experiences the shear failure. Second point is punching a hole in something with a tool. As we have discussed all types of direct stresses, now we will discuss about the indirect stresses. Indirect stress is defined as the stress which is developed due to the moment or torsion. Then it is called as indirect stress. Examples are bending stress or stress due to torsion. Now talking about the torsional stress, it can be defined as the shear stress that acts on a transverse cross section which is caused by the action of twist. Its torsional formula is tau max is equal to TR by Z. T is the internal torque induced in the body due to the external torque applied. R is the radius, J is the polar moment of inertia for the cross section. Torque is defined as a twisting force that tends to cause rotation of the object about an axis. Polar moment of inertia is a quantity to describe resistance to the torsional deformation in cylindrical objects with an invariant cross section, and no significant warping or out of plane deformation occurs in the body. It is also known as the second moment of area. Assumptions are made in torsional stress, which are: first assumption is taken as the material should be homogeneous, isotropic and elastic. The second one is uniform distribution of twisting force along the length of the shaft. The third one is the cross section of the shaft is considered as the planar and circular both before and after the twist. Next one is the distance between two normal sections is same in both before and after the twisting. The last assumption we take is the shear strain varies linearly in the radial direction. Now let us understand the torsional stress with diagram. Consider a shaft of length L and radius R. A twisting force or torque is applied at both ends. We observe that the shaft is twisted due to the torque by an angle theta. During the deformation, the cross sections are not distorted by any manner, they remain plane and the radius r does not change. They remain plane and the radius r does not change. In addition, the length L of the shaft also remains constant. Now let us know about some key points related to the torsional stress. First is the shear stress produced due to twisting varies linearly with the radial distance. Twisting shear stress increases as the radius of the shaft increases. Second point is the shear stress acting on the cross section is maximum at the surface of the shaft. Section is perpendicular to the torque axis. The resultant shear stress in the section is perpendicular to the radius. Third point is the Hooke's law is used in the formulation. These formula are valid if the shear stress do not exceed the proportionality limit of the material. These formulas are applicable only to the circular shaft, either solid or hollow. Next point is hollow members are better transmitters of torsion than solid members. The moments in torsional stress are indicated by the right hand rule for moment vectors. It states that if the finger curves in the direction of moment, then the direction of the thumb represents the direction of vector. Next point is distribution of shearing stress is statically indeterminate. So it is must to consider the shaft deformation. The last key point is unlike the normal stress due to axial loading, the distribution of shearing stress due to torsional loads cannot be assumed uniform. Now, after knowing the key points related to the torsional stress, let us know about the sign convention used in the torsional stress. We take sign convention on the basis of right hand rule. First one is if the moment in the direction of curve, then it is taken as positive. If the moment is opposite to the direction of curve, then it is taken as negative. Now taking an example, the drive shaft of a car connecting the engine to the rear axle, the rotation of the shaft will cause twisting, resulting in which the development of torsional stress. As we discussed the first type of the indirect stress, that is torsional stress. Now moving to the second type of indirect stress, that is bending stress. So bending stress is the normal stress that an object encounters when it is subjected to a large load at a particular point that causes the object to bend and become fatigued. Bending stress occurs when operating industrial equipment and in concrete and in metallic structure when they are subjected to a tensile load. Bending stress is the normal stress that an object encounters when it is subjected to a large load at a particular point that causes the object to bend and become fatigued. Bending stress occurs in operating industrial equipment and the metallic structures when they are subjected to a tensile load. Now let us talk about the formula which we use in bending stress. Formula of the bending stress is given by sigma b is equals to my by I. Sigma b is the bending stress, m is the bending moment, y is the vertical distance from the neutral axis, and I is the moment of inertia around the neutral axis. The above equation is valid only when the stress at the extreme fiber is below the yield stress of the material from which it is constructed. Extreme fiber means the portion of the beam farthest from the neutral axis. Now talking about the assumptions in the bending stress, first assumption is material beam is homogeneous and isotropic. It means that in all direction E is constant. Second point is Young modulus is constant in compression and tension. It is to simplify the analysis of the bending stress. Third assumption is transverse sections that are plane before bending remain plane after bending. It means it eliminates the effect of strain in other direction. Then fourth point is a beam is initially straight and all longitudinal filaments bends in circular arc. Beam is initially straight and all longitudinal filaments bends in circular arc. This assumption is taken to simplify the calculation of the bending stress. Fifth assumption of the bending stress is each layer of the beam is free to contract or expand. It is so because if it is obstructed, they will generate additional internal stresses. So they are free to contract or expand. It is assumed. The next point is the radius of the curvature is large as compared to the dimension of the beam. Now we will understand the bending stress with diagram. It shows a cantilever beam where the normal force or load is acting at the free end of the beam. This force causes beam to bend. The bending stress occurs due to this force is 0 at the neutral axis and maximum at the extreme fiber of the beam. Neutral axis coincide with the centroid of the beam cross section. In second diagram, a simply supported beam is shown where axial load is at the center of the beam causing bending of the beam. Now talking about the key points related to the bending stress. First point is in simple bending stress generated on the neutral axis is 0 and maximum at the extreme fiber. Neutral axis is the line of intersection of neutral layer with the transverse section. The second point is moment of any area about an axis passing through the centroid is also equal to 0. Hence, the neutral axis coincide with the centroidal axis. Next point is stress in any layer is directly proportional to the distance of the layer from the neutral layer. In bending stress, the upper layer of the beam experiences the compressive stress and the lower layer experiences the tensile stress. The next point is at higher loading, the stress distribution becomes non-linear and ductile material will eventually enter a plastic hinge state. It is the state where the magnitude of the stress is equal to the yield stress everywhere in the beam, with a discontinuity at the neutral axis where the stress changes from tensile to compressive. This plastic hinge state is typically used as a limit state in the design of steel structures. As we proceed from top layer to the neutral axis, decrease in length of the layer decreases. As we know, there is no change in length at the neutral axis due to zero stress. Similarly, increase of length will be maximum at the bottom layer as we proceed from bottom layer to the neutral axis, and hence increases in length of layers decreases. Now talking about the sign convention, positive bending moment bends the beam in concave upward direction. It is towards the positive y direction, and the negative bending moment bends a beam in concave downward direction. It is toward the negative y direction. Next is example of the bending stress. First example is closet rod sagging under the weight of clothes on the clothes hanger, and the second example is a large diameter thin walled short tube is supported at its end and loaded laterally experiences the bending stress. Next we will discuss about the combined stresses. Combined stress is the combination of direct stress and bending stress simultaneously acting on the object. Direct stress is produced in the body when body is subjected to the axial tensile or compressive load, whereas bending stress is produced when the bending moment is applied on the body. Third point is direct stress and bending stress act normal to the cross section. Both stressors can be algebraically added into a single resultant stress. Let us understand the combined stress with diagram. Now, consider a column subjected to a compressive load P whose line of action is at a distance E from the column axis. E is the eccentricity of the load. The eccentric compressive loading causes direct stresses and bending stresses simultaneously in the column. The eccentric compressive loading causes direct stress and bending stress simultaneously in the column. The bending stress depends upon the value of y from the axis yy at extreme point. Bending stress is obtained by taking y as a half of the width along the y-axis. If y is taken positive on the same side of the load, then bending stress will be of same type as the direct stress. Hence, the combined stress will be compressive towards the right of the axis yy. Similarly, tensile stress will be towards the left of the axis yy, which is taken as negative in this case. Maximum combined stress will be on the right side of the y-axis and minimum combined stress will be on the left side of the y-axis. Now, talking about the formula of the combined stress, it is given as sigma max is equals to direct stress plus bending stress, which is further equals to P by A in bracket 1 plus 6E by B. Next type of stress is thermal stress. It is defined as the resisting force corresponding to the external force applied on the body causes deformation in the body due to the alteration in temperature. It means temperature of the body is low at initial, and when we increase the temperature of the body, it increases the length of the body, or if the temperature of the body decreases, the length of the body also decreases. Now, formula for the thermal stress is given as sigma Th is equals to alpha in bracket T2 minus T1 into capital E. Alpha is the coefficient of linear expansion, T2 minus T1 is the rise in temperature or decrease in temperature, E is the modulus of elasticity. Next, understanding the thermal stress with a diagram. Suppose a beam which is fixed at one end and free at the other end. As we increase the temperature of the beam, the length of the beam increases due to the thermal stress. Next, talking about the important points related to the thermal stress. First point is an increase in temperature implies that increase in the kinetic energy of the individual atoms, which will increase a solid size by a certain fraction in each dimension. Second is thermal stress is induced when constrained thermal expansion and contraction occurs in the body due to the temperature change. Third one is thermal expansion is a change in size or volume of a given mass with a temperature. Fourth point is cracking is initiated when the maximum tensile thermal stress in the material reaches the fracture stress as measured under the condition appropriate to the thermal shock in terms of temperatures. Now, talking about the sign convention used in thermal stress, if the body is expanded due to the increase in temperature, then it is taken as positive. When the body is contracted due to decrease in the temperature, then it is taken as negative. Next, talking about the example of the thermal stress. Thermal stress causes deformation on the rails.